Did you know there's an ancient philosophy that can completely transform your relationship with money, health, success, and love? What's even more impressive is that it was created over 2,000 years ago, yet it's more relevant today than ever. I'm talking about Stoicism, and today I'm going to reveal the secrets that some of the greatest leaders in history used to attract abundance in every area of life. Now, I know you've probably heard about Stoicism before. Maybe you've seen a nice quote from Marcus Aurelius floating around on social media. But what I'm about to share goes far beyond that. I'm going to show you how this philosophy can literally change the way you attract opportunities, build wealth, maintain your health, achieve success, and experience deep, meaningful relationships. So stay with me until the end, because the final revelation is the most powerful of all. It will challenge everything you believe about control and personal power. Before we continue, if you're seeking personal growth, real transformation, and want to learn from philosophies that actually work, subscribe to the channel right now. This content could completely change how you see what you're capable of achieving. Let's get straight to the point. Stoicism was born in ancient Greece around 300 BC. It was founded by a man named Zeno of Citium, but it truly gained strength in Rome, where emperors, generals, and highly successful individuals adopted it as their way of life. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, was a Stoic. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men of his time, was a Stoic. Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of the most respected philosophers in history, was a Stoic. Do you see the pattern? People from completely different backgrounds, all using the same principles to live better lives. Now you might be wondering, what does an ancient philosophy have to do with attracting money, health, success, and love today? Everything. Absolutely everything. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or living a cold, emotionless life, as many people think. It's about mastering your mind, understanding what is within your control and what isn't, and using that clarity to make better decisions. And when you make better decisions, better things happen in your life. Let me give you a practical example. Money. Most people live in fear of losing money, anxious about their financial future, or jealous of other people's success. These emotions drain your energy and sabotage opportunities. Stoicism teaches that you don't control the market, you don't control the economy, and you don't control whether you'll win the lottery, but you do control your actions, your habits, and your discipline. When you stop wasting mental energy on what you can't control and focus entirely on what you can, your productivity explodes. Your ability to recognize opportunities increases. You become someone who acts, not someone who merely reacts. Seneca once wrote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." He was incredibly wealthy, not because of luck, but because he was always prepared, always acting wisely, always focused on what he could control. And what about health? Stoicism teaches discipline over your body, not to impress others or out of fear of death, but because your body is the instrument through which you live well. Marcus Aurelius woke up early, exercised regularly, and followed a strict routine, not out of obligation but out of self-respect. That difference is subtle but powerful. When you take care of your health out of self-respect rather than external pressure, discipline becomes natural. You're no longer fighting yourself, you're working with yourself. When it comes to success, Stoicism frees you from the trap of comparison. You know that feeling of always chasing, never feeling like you're enough? That happens because you're measuring your success by other people's standards. Stoicism reminds you that the only person you need to compete with is who you were yesterday. Epictetus, the former slave turned philosopher, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He couldn't control being born a slave, but he had total control over how he used his mind. That choice made him free, even when he was still in chains. And love. This is where Stoicism reveals something revolutionary. It teaches that true love isn't about possession, it's about virtue. It's not about controlling another person. It's about becoming the best version of yourself. When you stop seeking external validation and start cultivating inner virtue, you become naturally attractive. People are drawn to those who are authentic, purposeful, and emotionally grounded. Stoicism gives you that inner stability, and stability is magnetic. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Think about that. It doesn't depend on what others do. It doesn't depend on external circumstances. It depends on you. So let's recap. Stoicism teaches you to focus on what you can control. When you do that, you attract money by acting with discipline and wisdom. You attract health by treating yourself with respect. You attract success by stopping comparison and focusing on growth. And you attract love by becoming stable, authentic, and virtuous. But there's more, much more. What I'm about to reveal next will connect all of this in a way you've probably never considered. I'll show you specific Stoic practices you can apply today to start seeing real results. Now that you understand the foundation, let's dive into the practical secrets the Stoics use daily. And make no mistake, this isn't empty theory. These are real tools you can start using today. The first great Stoic secret for attracting everything you want in life is something they called Amor, Fati, love of fate. It sounds strange, I know. How do you love fate? Let me explain it in a way that makes sense. Think about all the bad things that have happened to you, that career failure, that painful breakup, that financial loss. The natural reaction is resistance, anger, frustration, resentment. But the Stoics realized something powerful. Resistance doesn't change the past. It only traps you in it. Amor fati means accepting what happened, not with resignation, but as raw material for growth. It's looking at failure and asking, what can this teach me? It's looking at loss and asking, how can this make me stronger? When you adopt this mindset, something incredible happens. You stop wasting energy fighting the past and start investing that energy into building the future. That's when money starts flowing, not because you're lucky, but because you're acting instead of complaining. Success shows up because you're learning instead of playing the victim. The second secret is brutal, and most people don't like hearing it. It's the practice of Memento Mori, which means remembering that you will die. I know, it sounds morbid, but stay with me. The Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, reflected on death daily, not out of fear, but to gain clarity. When you truly internalize that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on trivial things. You stop procrastinating, you stop holding grudges, you stop postponing your dreams. Seneca wrote, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it." Think about how many hours you've lost to pointless arguments, endless scrolling, or worries that never came true. If you lived as if each day could be your last, you'd make very different choices. Here's how this connects to abundance. When you act with conscious urgency, you create more, produce more, and take more meaningful risks. Not out of desperation, but out of focus. Successful people don't have more time than you. They simply use their time better. If this content is resonating with you and you're starting to see how these ideas can transform your life, hit the like button. It helps this message reach others who need to hear it. The third Stoic secret is the dichotomy of control, the foundation of everything. The Stoics divided life into two categories: what is within your control and what is not. Within your control, your thoughts, your actions, your values, your choices. Outside your control, other people's opinions, the past, the future, external events. It sounds simple, but most people get it backward. They spend their lives trying to control what others think, predict the future, or rewrite the past, while neglecting the only things they can control. Epictetus said, "Demand much of yourself and expect little from others." That alone can eliminate enormous amounts of anxiety. When you stop expecting the world to adapt to you and start adapting yourself to the world, you gain immense power. In practice, this means you don't control whether you'll become wealthy overnight, but you do control whether you save 10% of your income each month. You don't control whether you'll meet the love of your life tomorrow, but you do control whether you work on becoming a better person today. You don't control instant success, but you do control whether you dedicate 1 hour a day to self-improvement. Do this consistently, month after month, year after year, and one day you'll look back and realize you attracted exactly what you wanted, not through magic, but through intentional action. The fourth secret is rarely discussed: negative visualization. The Stoics practiced this regularly. They imagined losing everything: their wealth, their health, their relationships. It sounds depressing, but the logic is brilliant. When you visualize loss, two things happen. First, you develop gratitude for what you have now. You stop taking things for granted. Second, you mentally prepare for adversity. If the worst happens, you don't collapse. You've already processed it. Seneca practiced this by living like a poor man for a few days each month, eating simple food, sleeping uncomfortably. When he returned to his normal life, he did so with deeper appreciation and less attachment. This is revolutionary for building wealth. Why? Because you stop acting out of desperation. You don't accept any job out of fear of having nothing. You don't cling to toxic relationships out of fear of being alone. You make decisions from strength, not weakness. The fifth secret is virtue. The Stoics believed in 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Wisdom is knowing how to apply knowledge at the right moment. Courage is acting despite fear. Justice is treating others fairly and contributing to the greater good. Temperance is self-control, knowing when to stop. When you cultivate these virtues, you naturally attract better people, better opportunities, and better outcomes. Why? Because you become trustworthy. People want to do business with those who are wise, courageous, fair, and balanced. Marcus Aurelius held the greatest power in the known world. He could have done anything he wanted. Instead, he chose to live with virtue, and that's why he's remembered as one of the greatest leaders in history, not just another emperor. Look at your life right now. Are you cultivating wisdom by learning and studying? Are you showing courage by stepping outside your comfort zone? Are you being fair in your relationships? Are you practicing moderation in your habits? If the answer is yes, you're on the right path. If not, now you know exactly what needs to change. One thing must be clear: Stoicism doesn't promise magical results. It promises something better. It promises that you'll become someone capable of handling any outcome. And when you have that ability, you act with confidence, and confidence attracts everything. And there's still more ahead. In the next part, I'll reveal specific daily practices you can start using immediately, mental exercises that will reprogram your mind to attract abundance. Now let's get to what really matters. How you turn all of this into concrete action, because knowledge without practice is worthless, and the Stoics knew that better than anyone. The first daily practice that can change your life is what Marcus Aurelius did every single morning: mental preparation. He would wake up and mentally rehearse the day ahead. He imagined the challenges, the difficult people, the obstacles he might face, and he prepared himself internally for all of it. But it wasn't just about imagining problems. It was about deciding in advance how he would respond. If someone was rude, he had already decided he would respond calmly. If something went wrong, he had already decided he would treat it as a learning opportunity. You can do this in just 5 minutes every morning. Before grabbing your phone, before checking emails, sit down, take a deep breath, and visualize your day. Ask yourself, what difficult situations might I face today? How do I want to respond to them? What kind of person do I want to be today? This simple practice changes everything, because when the problem actually shows up, you're not caught off guard. You've already rehearsed it mentally, and then you act according to your values, not your impulses. The second practice is the evening journal. Seneca did this religiously. Every night, he reflected in writing on 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where could I have acted better? What did I learn? It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful. When you review your day every night, you create a cycle of continuous improvement. You start noticing patterns in your mistakes. You identify what's working. You become conscious of your actions. And here's the secret. You don't do this to punish yourself for mistakes. You do it to learn. The Stoics were brutally honest with themselves, but also compassionate. They understood that being human means making mistakes. What matters is not repeating the same mistake forever. Grab a notebook today. It doesn't need to be fancy. And before bed, write answers to those 3 questions. In 3 months, you'll look back and be shocked at how much you've grown. The third Stoic practice is what they called training the will. It's simple. Deliberately choose to do hard things. Take cold showers. Fast occasionally. Wake up earlier than necessary. Work out even when you don't feel like it. Why? Because every time you overcome internal resistance, you strengthen your will. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And a strong will is what separates those who achieve from those who only dream. Epictetus was obsessed with this. He said, "If you want to be free, you must practice voluntary discomfort. Not because pleasure is bad, but because you can't be a slave to pleasure. You must be okay even without comfort." And here's the interesting part. When you practice voluntary discomfort, the involuntary discomfort of life becomes easier. When you choose cold showers every day, a car breakdown, an unexpected bill, or a failed project doesn't knock you down anymore. The fourth practice is active gratitude. The Stoics didn't just feel grateful, they acted on it. Seneca wrote letters of gratitude. Marcus Aurelius began his meditations by thanking the people who influenced him. You can do this every morning. Before starting your day, think of 3 things you're grateful for, but go deeper than the surface. Not just, "I'm grateful for my family," but, "I'm grateful for my wife who supported me when I decided to change careers. I'm grateful for my body that allows me to work and move." Here's the magic. When you train your brain to look for good things, you start seeing more good things. Not because life changed, but because your perception did. And a positive perception attracts positive opportunities. The fifth practice is what the Stoics called premeditation of adversity. I've mentioned this before, but here's the concrete exercise. Once a week, sit down and write, "What is my biggest fear right now? If it actually happened, what would I do? Afraid of losing your job? Write a plan, cut expenses, update your resume, reach out to contacts, maybe finally start that business you've been thinking about. Afraid of losing someone? Write how you would honor their memory, how you would move forward, how you would use the pain to grow. When you do this, fear loses its power. Because you realize that even in the worst-case scenario, you would survive. And often, you'd survive better than you imagine. The sixth practice is focus. The Stoics were obsessed with doing one thing at a time and doing it well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do every action as if it were the last of your life." Imagine living like that. In practice, it means this. When you're working, work. No phone, no distractions, no multitasking. When you're with your family, be present. Don't think about work. When you're resting, truly rest. Most people live in zombie mode, doing everything halfway, and then complain about results. But when you give full attention to each moment, you produce 10 times more in half the time. So here's your challenge. Choose one important task today and give it 100% focus for 1 hour. No interruptions. You'll be shocked by how much you can get done. The seventh practice is community. The Stoics believed we are social beings and must contribute to the common good. Marcus Aurelius said, "What does not benefit the hive does not benefit the bee." This means part of your growth journey must include helping others. Through your work, through volunteering, or simply by being a better person in your relationships. Here's the beautiful paradox. When you focus on contributing, you receive more. Not because you expect a return, but because you become valuable. And valuable people attract valuable opportunities. The eighth practice is language. The Stoics were extremely careful with words. Epictetus taught, Don't say I lost something, say I returned it. Don't say I have to work, say I get to work. It sounds trivial, but the way you speak changes the way you think, and the way you think determines how you act. When you reframe your language, you reframe your reality. Start paying attention to how you talk about your life. Do you use victim language or protagonist language? Do you complain or look for solutions? Do your words empower you or weaken you? And finally, the ninth practice is strategic silence. The Stoics deeply valued silence, not speaking just to speak, not arguing just to argue, knowing when to stay quiet. Seneca wrote, "The first thing we must learn is silence, because in silence you listen, in silence you think, in silence you observe, and those three are essential for wise decisions." Try spending an entire day speaking only when truly necessary. You'll notice how many words we waste and how much power silence gives you. So let's recap the 9 practices. Morning mental preparation, evening journaling, training the will, active gratitude, premeditation of adversity, total focus, contribution to the community, conscious language, strategic silence. If you implement just 3 of these practices, your life will change in 6 months. If you implement all of them, you'll be unrecognizable in a year. Now let's talk about the part no one wants to hear, but that's absolutely essential. Obstacles. Because it's one thing to practice Stoicism when everything is going well. It's a completely different thing to hold your principles when life falls apart. Here's the raw truth. Life will fall apart. You will lose money. You will lose people. You will fail at important projects. You will face betrayal, illness, and crises. This isn't pessimism, it's realism. The difference between those who grow and those who break isn't avoiding obstacles, it's how they deal with them when they arrive. And the Stoics had a radical philosophy about this. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that should be engraved in everyone's mind. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Read that again. The obstacle isn't in your way. The obstacle is the way. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine you're building a business and your biggest client leaves. You can see it as the end, panic, give up. Or you can see it as a sign that you were relying too much on one source of income and use it to diversify, strengthen your structure, and become more resilient. The obstacle forced you to improve. Without it, you would have remained vulnerable. In a strange way, that client did you a favor by leaving. This isn't empty positive thinking, it's practical strategy. The Stoics didn't deny bad things happened. They simply refused to be paralyzed by them. Seneca spent years in exile. He could have lived in bitterness. Instead, it was during exile that he wrote some of his most important works. He turned punishment into productivity, isolation into introspection. So what about you? When something bad happens, what's your first reaction? Do you blame the world, blame others? Or do you ask, what can I learn from this? How can I use this to my advantage? Now, something important. Turning obstacles into opportunities doesn't mean denying pain. The Stoics felt pain. They felt sadness. They felt anger. They were human, but they didn't let those emotions control their actions. Epictetus taught, it's not things that disturb us, but the judgments we form about them. Think about that. You lose money. The event itself is neutral, but then you create a story. I'm a failure. I'll never succeed. Life is unfair. That story destroys you, not the loss itself. What if you told a different story? I lost money, but I'm alive, healthy, and capable of earning it again. This was an expensive lesson, but a lesson nonetheless. Same event, completely different outcome. The Stoics had a concept called apatheia, not apathy but freedom from destructive passions, not being a slave to your emotions. Imagine someone harshly criticizes you, tries to humiliate you. The natural reaction is anger, revenge, replaying it for days. The Stoic response is simple. Is there truth in the criticism? If yes, thank them and improve. If not, why care about the opinion of someone who's wrong? Would you care if a 5-year-old criticized you? No. So why care about adults who behave like children? When you develop this emotional freedom, you become unstoppable. No one can hurt you with words. No one can manipulate you with approval or rejection. You act based on your values, not others' reactions. That's crucial for success. Successful people face constant criticism. If you're vulnerable to those voices, you stop. With apatheia, you continue. Now here's something counterintuitive. The Stoics practiced anticipatory detachment. Even when they had good things, they mentally prepared to lose them. Seneca was incredibly wealthy, but he reminded himself daily, "This isn't mine. It's borrowed from life." He didn't live in fear of loss, but he also didn't cling. And here's the key. When you're not attached, you make better decisions. You don't accept crumbs out of fear. You don't tolerate toxic relationships out of loneliness. You act from abundance, not scarcity. Paradoxically, that mindset attracts more abundance, because desperation repels and calm confidence attracts. There's a story about Epictetus that illustrates this perfectly. He was a slave, and one day his owner twisted his leg. Epictetus calmly said, "You're going to break my leg." The owner kept going and broke it. Epictetus simply said, "I told you it would break." No drama, no hatred, no victimhood, just acceptance of what happened and focus on what came next. That calm under pressure eventually earned him his freedom. You don't need to let anyone break your leg to practice this. Start small. Traffic delays you. Someone cuts in line. You spill your coffee. These small inconveniences are training sessions. If you lose your calm over small things, how will you handle real crises? Marcus Aurelius had a fascinating mental exercise. He imagined that every difficult person he encountered was sent by life specifically to train him, like a personal trainer for character. That annoying boss isn't an enemy, it's a patience instructor. That difficult client isn't a problem, it's a communication masterclass. When you reframe it this way, you stop resisting and start learning. Here's what few people understand. Stoicism doesn't make you cold. It frees you to feel the right emotions. When you stop wasting emotional energy on trivial things, you have more capacity to love deeply, to feel genuine joy, to truly connect. It's like cleaning a dirty glass. You must empty the dirty water to fill it with clean water. You must clear toxic emotions to make room for nourishing ones. So let's recap. Obstacles aren't enemies. They're teachers. You don't control what happens, but you fully control how you interpret and respond. Detachment isn't not caring, it's caring without being enslaved, and every small adversity trains you for bigger ones. If you made it this far, write in the comments. The obstacle is the way. Let's see who's actually committed to applying this in real life. Now let's connect everything you've learned so far to the most important areas of your life: money, relationships, and purpose. Because understanding philosophy means nothing if you don't know how to apply it where it truly matters. Let's start with money, because it's what causes the most anxiety for people, and the Stoics had a view of wealth that is completely different from what you usually hear. First, the Stoics were not against money. Seneca was extremely wealthy. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor. They didn't preach poverty, they preached detachment. And there's a massive difference between not having money and not being enslaved by money. Seneca wrote, "It is difficult to turn poverty into wealth, but easy to turn wealth into poverty through greed." The problem was never having money. The problem is when money owns you instead of you owning money. So how do you attract money in a Stoic way? First, you stop focusing on money itself and start focusing on creating value. The Stoics believed that the only real wealth is virtue, and virtue applied to work means excellence. When you do your work with excellence, when you deliver more than promised, when you solve real problems for real people, money comes as a natural consequence. Not because you're chasing it, but because you're creating something worth paying for. Think about anyone who is truly wealthy, not someone who won the lottery, but someone who built sustainable wealth. They all have one thing in common. They solve problems. They create value. And here's the Stoic secret. You don't pursue money for status, external approval, or fear. You seek resources because they give you freedom. Freedom to choose how you use your time. Freedom to help the people you love. Freedom to contribute in a meaningful way. Marcus Aurelius had access to the entire wealth of the empire, yet he lived simply. He ate basic food, slept in modest beds. Why? Because he understood that excessive luxury enslaves you. The more you need to be happy, the less free you are. So practice number 1 with money. Live below your means, not to be miserable, but to be free. When you don't need much to live well, you can make decisions based on values, not financial desperation. Practice number 2. Save and invest, not out of fear of the future, but like a gardener planting seeds. You can't control if the economy crashes tomorrow, but you can control whether you save 10% of your income every month. Practice number 3. Spend money on experiences and knowledge, not on impressing others. The Stoics valued education, travel that expanded the mind, and time with loved ones. They did not value display or status symbols. And here's something radical. The Stoics practiced strategic generosity. They gave without expecting anything in return, but they gave wisely. They helped those who truly needed it, not those who simply wanted. Seneca said, "No one can be happy without being generous." Because when you give, you affirm to yourself that you live in abundance, and that abundance mindset attracts more abundance. Now let's talk about relationships, because this is another area where people suffer unnecessarily. And the Stoics had deep insights about love, friendship, and family. The first Stoic principle of relationships: you don't control whether someone loves you. You control whether you are someone worthy of being loved. That difference changes everything. Most people chase love desperately. They change who they are to please others. They tolerate disrespect out of fear of being alone. And as a result, they attract unhealthy relationships because they're acting from scarcity. The Stoic works on himself. He cultivates virtue, develops self-awareness, becomes interesting, reliable, stable, and naturally he attracts people who value those qualities. Marcus Aurelius was deeply grateful for his wife, but he understood that he did not control her. He couldn't force her to love him, so he focused on being the best husband he could be and let the rest unfold naturally. Second principle: true love is about wanting what's best for the other person, not possessing them. Epictetus said, "If you love someone, love them as a mortal human being, not as something you own." That means accepting that people can change, leave, or die. And you love knowing that, not from fear, but from realism. And that kind of love, free from desperate attachment, is the deepest love there is. Third principle: you attract who you are. If you want an honest partner, be honest. If you want someone healthy, be healthy. If you want someone with purpose, live with purpose. People spend years looking for the perfect person, but not a single day becoming the right person. Then they complain that they only attract the wrong people. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Fourth principle: healthy relationships require clear boundaries. The Stoics did not tolerate disrespect. They were kind, but they were not doormats. Seneca wrote, "He who is kind to everyone is kind to no one." You must know how to say no. You must know when to distance yourself from toxic people. You must accept that some people don't deserve your time, your energy, or your loyalty. That's not cruelty. That's wisdom. And here's something that will change your relationships forever. Stop trying to change people. The Stoics were obsessed with focusing on what they controlled. You don't control how others act. You control how you respond. If someone is constantly rude, you don't try to fix them. You decide whether you want to remain exposed to that behavior. You always have the power to walk away, and often walking away is the wisest choice. Now let's talk about purpose, because it's the foundation of everything. Without purpose, money doesn't satisfy. Without purpose, relationships feel empty. Without purpose, success feels hollow. The Stoics had brutal clarity about purpose. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, 'Today I will meet intrusive, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and antisocial people, and my job is to remain faithful to my principles.'" See the clarity? His purpose wasn't to change the world, it was to remain true to himself regardless of what the world did. And ironically, by doing that, he changed the world. Your purpose doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to save humanity. It can be simple. Live with integrity. Do well what's in your hands. Treat people with respect. Leave every place better than you found it. But it must be intentional. Most people live on autopilot. Wake up, work, distract themselves, sleep, repeat. And they reach 50 without knowing why they lived. The Stoics did the opposite. They were hyper-intentional. Every action had meaning. Every choice reflected their values. And that intention turned ordinary acts into meaningful ones. Epictetus was a slave doing manual labor. He could have seen it as wasted time. Instead, he chose to see it as an opportunity to practice virtue, work with excellence, and strengthen his character. That mindset eventually freed him. So how do you discover your purpose the Stoic way? You don't discover it, you decide it. You choose your values. You choose how you want to be remembered. You choose the legacy you want to leave. Then you align your daily actions with that choice. Not perfectly, because you're human, but consistently. And over time, your entire life transforms. Ask yourself now, what are your non-negotiable values? What do you stand for when it's difficult? How do you want people to feel after interacting with you? Who do you want to be 10 years from now? These questions aren't abstract, they're the map of your life. And if you don't have clear answers, you're navigating without direction. The Stoics believed that living according to rational nature was the human purpose. In practice, that means using your mind, developing your abilities, contributing to the common good, and living with virtue. And when you do that, something powerful happens. You stop needing external validation. You stop comparing your life to others. You stop chasing empty things because you have something no external circumstance can take from you, your integrity. We've reached the end of this journey, and now I'll reveal the most powerful secret of all, the Stoic principle that, when truly understood, changes everything. It's hidden in a simple sentence from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength. It sounds obvious, but most people spend their entire lives trying to control the uncontrollable, weather, the economy, other people's opinions, the past, the future, and they waste all their energy doing it. Here's the brutal truth. The pursuit of external control is exactly what keeps you weak, anxious, and unhappy. It blocks money, sabotages relationships, and steals peace. When you try to control what you can't, you live in constant frustration. You react to the world instead of acting within it. You become a leaf in the wind, not a tree that withstands the storm. But when you truly accept that the only thing you control is your mind, your choices, your responses, something extraordinary happens. You become free. And true freedom is what attracts everything in life. It's not money that attracts money. It's inner freedom that attracts opportunity. It's not physical beauty that attracts real love. It's emotional stability. It's not luck that creates success. It's mental clarity that leads to the right decisions. The Stoics understood this over 2,000 years ago. Real power doesn't come from mastering the external world. It comes from mastering the internal one. And when you master the internal, the external responds. Seneca accumulated wealth, power, and influence. And at the end of his life, he concluded, "I owned many things, but nothing truly owned me except my peace of mind." And that was the only real wealth. He wasn't saying money doesn't matter. He was saying that if you conquer the world but lose control of your mind, you've conquered nothing. But if you master your mind, even without conquering the world, you have everything. Here's the practical application that can change your life today. Stop chasing outcomes and start refining processes. You don't control whether you become rich, but you control whether you work with excellence every day. You don't control whether you find love, but you control whether you become someone capable of loving well. When you shift your focus from results to process, two things happen. First, you act better because you're not paralyzed by outcome pressure. Second, paradoxically, you achieve better results because you're focused on what matters. Think of an archer. If he obsesses over hitting the target, his hands shake and he misses. If he focuses on posture, breathing and form, he naturally hits more often. Life works the same way. Marcus Aurelius ruled the greatest empire in the world. He faced wars, betrayal, plagues and crises. And every day he asked himself one question: what can I control today? My actions, my thoughts, my principles. And he focused entirely on that. That clarity made him an extraordinary leader. People trusted him because he was stable. He made wise decisions because he wasn't clouded by reactive emotion. Now here's your final exercise, the one that can transform everything if you do it daily. Every morning, before anything else, take a pen and paper. Draw 3 columns: under my control, outside my control, how I will act today. In the first column, list what you truly control: your thoughts, words, actions, habits, attention. In the second, list what you don't: other people's opinions, the past, distant future, external events. In the third, write exactly how you'll act today based on what you control. Be specific. Do this for 30 days. Watch your life change. Less anxiety, less complaining, less wasted emotional energy, and more energy for what truly matters: creating, building, loving, living. One final thing. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions. It's not about becoming cold or numb. It's about choosing consciously where to invest your emotional energy. The Stoics felt deep love, genuine joy, real compassion. They just refused to be ruled by destructive anger, corrosive envy, or paralyzing fear. They chose, and you can choose too. Gratitude instead of resentment, curiosity instead of defensiveness, action instead of victimhood. Every moment is a choice, and the sum of those choices defines who you become. Epictetus said, "It's not circumstances that shape a man, but the man who shapes circumstances." You didn't choose where you were born. You didn't choose many things that happened to you. But every day, you choose who you will be in response. And that inner freedom is untouchable. Money can be taken, health can be taken, people can be taken, but no one can take your ability to choose your response. Marcus Aurelius lost children, endured illness, faced assassination attempts and brutal wars. And still, he chose virtue, purpose, and dignity. If he could do it in his circumstances, you can do it in yours, not because it's easy, but because it's possible, and because it's the only thing truly worth pursuing. So here's my final challenge. Live like a Stoic. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Focus on what you control, accept what you don't, act with virtue, create value, love freely. Watch how money begins to flow, not because you chase it, but because you create value. Watch your health improve, not through obsession, but through discipline. Watch success appear, not through comparison, but through growth. Watch love arrive, not from desperation, but from wholeness. The Stoics proved this path works. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. Different lives, same conclusion. The greatest human achievement is not mastering the external world, but mastering the internal one. And when you master your inner world, you don't have to chase anything. The right things find you. So pause now, take a deep breath, and make a commitment to yourself. Starting today, live with more intention, more clarity, more focus, more virtue. Not tomorrow, not Monday, today. If this video resonated with you, like it now. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel, there's much more coming. And in the comments, write just one sentence. I control my mind. because when you declare it publicly, you create commitment. And commitment is the first step to transformation. On screen now, you'll see 2 recommended videos, one on how the Stoics transformed failure into victory, and another on the morning habits of the great philosophers who changed history. Click one and continue this journey, because knowledge without action is useless, but applied knowledge is transformation. And transformation is the difference between merely existing and truly living. You made it to the end. That already puts you ahead of 90% of people. Most quit. You didn't. That means you have what it takes. Now go live like a Stoic, not as an abstract philosophy, but as a daily practice. And when you look back 1 year from now, you won't believe how much you've grown. The obstacle is the way. Control lives in the mind. Freedom lives in choice. And the power was always within you. See you in the next video. Until then, live with virtue.